dealing with the High Septon once and for all, King Maegor lingered at Oldtown for seemingly the first half of 43 AC. That was until another challenger to his throne arose. Maegor's long absence from King's Landing, as he put an end to the Faith Uprising, had not gone unnoticed by his nephew, whom, being the late King Aenys' eldest son, should have been the king. But in Maegor's absence, Prince Aegon was quick to seize his chance, emerging at last from Casterly Rock, the boy whom had been called Aegon the Uncrowned, and his wife Rhaena raced across the riverlands with a handful of trusted companions and entered King's Landing, sealed beneath sacks of corn. If the guards at the gates had checked the cargo more thoroughly, Aegon's rebellion surely would have ended there and then. But Aegon the Uncrowned had an issue. With so few followers, he dared not seat himself upon the Iron Throne, as he knew he could not hold it. Most in the realm had now sworn themselves to Maegor, most out of fear, and fear is a hard thing to break from. It was not the throne itself they had come for. They were in fact there for Rhaena's dragon, Dreamfyre, and so that the prince might finally claim a dragon of his own, his father's beloved Quicksilver. In this bold endeavour, they were aided by friends in Maegor's own court, who had grown weary at the king's cruelties. Whom these people were, we cannot say, but they risked a lot to help Aegon's cause. The prince and princess entered King's Landing in a wagon pulled by mules, but when they made their departure, it was now on dragonback, flying side by side. From there, Aegon and Rhaena returned to the Westerlands, where most of his few allies were from, to assemble an army. The Lannisters of Casterly Rock were still reluctant to openly support Aegon's cause, given the sheer scale of the mountain he had to climb to win the throne. So instead, Aegon rallied his army at Pinkmaiden Castle, the seat of House Piper. John Piper, the Lord of Pinkmaiden, had pledged his sword to the prince, but it was widely believed it was his fiery sister, Melanie, Rhaena's girlhood friend, who had won him to the cause. It was there at Pinkmaiden that Aegon Targaryen, mounted on Quicksilver, descended from the skies to denounce his uncle as a tyrant and a usurper, and call upon all honest men to rally to his banner. I do not have time for tears. Rhaena, after hearing of the death of her husband Aegon in the battle beneath the God's Eye, Fire and Blood, the sons of the dragon. The lords and knights who answered Aegon the Uncrowned's call were largely Westermen and river lords. To his side came the lords Tarbeck, Root, Vance, Charlton, Frey, Page, Perrin, Varman and Westerling. Lord Corbray of the Vale, the bastard of Barrington in the north, and the fourth son of the Lord of Griffin's Roost in the Stormlands also answered Aegon's call. From Lannisport came 500 men under the banner of a bastard son of Lord Lyman Lannister, Sir Tyler Hill, by which ploy the cunning Lord of Casterly Rock indeed lent his support to the young prince, while still keeping his own hands clean should Maegor prevail. He had given himself plausible deniability. Interestingly, the Piper levies were not led by Lord John or his brothers, but by their sister Melanie, who donned a man's mail and took up a spear. 15,000 men had joined the rebellion as Aegon the Uncrowned began his march across the riverlands to stake his claim to his father's throne, led by the prince himself on King Aenys' beloved dragon Quicksilver. While given this number was likely more than Aegon could have hoped for, it would still be a hard fight against Maegor. Though their ranks included seasoned commanders and knights, not a single great lord openly had rallied to Prince Aegon's cause, most unwilling to risk so much for the unproven Aegon. But Queen Tyanna, the mistress of whisperers, wrote to warn Maegor that Storm's End, the Eyrie, Winterfell and Casterly Rock had all been in secret communication with Aegon, with his brother's widowed queen Alyssa. Before declaring for the Prince of Dragonstone, they wished to be convinced he might prevail. Prince Aegon required a small token victory to do this. There is much debate to how true this claim by Tyanna was. There was very little indication any of the great houses were willing to involve themselves in this conflict, save perhaps Lyman Lannister. Some speculate Tyanna might have falsified these claims to spur Maegor's eagerness, ensuring he took the threat seriously. No matter the truth, Maegor denied Aegon a chance to prove himself, as the king called his own banners. From Harrenhal came forth Lord Harroway, from Riverrun, Lord Tully. Sir Davos Darkland of the Kingsguard marshalled 5,000 swords in King's Landing and struck out west immediately to meet the rebels. Up from the Reach came Lord Peake, Merryweather and Caswell and their levies. Prince Aegon's slow-moving host found armies closing from all sides, each smaller than their own force, but so many that the young prince, still but 17 years of age, did not know which way to turn. He became overwhelmed, and thus chose inaction. Lord Corbray advised him to engage each foe separately before they could join their power as one, but Aegon was loath to divide his strength. Instead he chose to march on towards King's Landing. My brother Aegon died at the hands of our uncle in the battle beneath the God's Eye. His wife, my sister Rhaena, was not with him at that battle, but she died that day as well. King Jaehaerys I on the battle beneath the God's Eye. Fire and blood, Jaehaerys and Alysanne. Just south of the God's Eye, Aegon encountered Davos Darkland blocking his path, sitting on the high ground behind a wall of spears. Even as scouts reported Lord Merryweather and Caswell advancing from the south, and Lord Tully and Harroway from the north, Prince Aegon commanded a charge, hoping to break through the Kingslanders before the other loyalists fell upon his flanks. He mounted Quicksilver to lead the attack himself, but scarcely had he taken wing when he heard shouts and saw his men below pointing to where Balerion the Black Dread had appeared in the southern sky. King Maegor had come. This would not be Aegon's chance to prove himself. No matter the outcome of this battle, the war would be decided there and then between Aegon and Maegor. To the victor would go the Iron Throne. But this event was much more significant than most at the time would ever understand, as for the first time since the Doom of Valyria so many centuries ago, dragon fought dragon in the sky. Aegon's dragon, his father's beloved Quicksilver, was a quarter of the size of Balerion. Quicksilver in truth was no match for the older, fiercer Balerion, and her pale white fireballs were engulfed and washed away in great gouts of black flame. Then the Black Dread fell upon from above, his jaws closing around her neck as he ripped one wing from her body. Screaming and smoking, the young dragon plunged to the earth, and Prince Aegon with her. The first dragon battle in hundreds of years was over in a mere instant. The battle below was just as brief, if bloodier. Once Aegon fell, the rebels saw their cause was doomed and ran, discarding arms and armour as they fled. But the loyalist army were all around them, and there was no escape. By day's end, 2,000 of Aegon's men had died, versus 100 lost by the king. Amongst Aegon's dead was Lord Alyn Tarbak, Denys Snow the Bastard of Barrington, Lord Ronald Vance, Sir Willem Willister, Melanie Piper and her 3 brothers, and of course, the Prince of Dragonstone, the eldest son of King Aenys Targaryen, Aegon the Uncrowned, as he will forever be known to the pages of history. The only notable loss amongst the loyalists was Sir Davos Darkland of the Kingsguard, slain at the hands of Lord Corbray with the famed Valyrian steel sword, Lady Forlorn. Half a year of trials and executions followed. Queen Visenya persuaded her son to spare some of the rebellious lords, but even those who kept their lives lost lands and titles, and were forced to give up hostages to the king. One notable name could be found neither amongst the dead nor the captives. Rhaena Targaryen, sister and wife to Prince Aegon, had not joined the host. Whether that be by his command or at her own choice is still debated to this day. It is well known, however, that she had begged Aegon to forego his claim to the throne and run away to Essos with their babe twin daughters. All that is known for certain is that Rhaena remained at Pinkmaiden Castle with her daughters when Aegon marched, and with her dragon Dreamfyre. Would the addition of a second dragon to the prince's host have made that much of a difference when battle was joined? It may have been possible. While Balerion was distracted with one dragon, the second could have in turn made an attack on Maegor. Given the size and power of the Black Dread, victory would have still been a faint glimmer for Aegon regardless. The truth is, Rhaena always had the right of it, and Aegon's cause was always doomed to end this way, which is perhaps why she refused to march with him. Others argue if this were the case, why would she have risked her life sneaking into King's Landing to steal Dreamfyre and Quicksilver in the first place? We shall never know. When word of the battle reached the west, and Princess Rhaena learned that both her husband and her friend Lady Melanie had fallen, it was said she heard the news in a stony silence. "Will you not weep?" she was asked, to which she replied, "I do not have time for tears." Whereupon, fearing her uncle's wrath, she gathered her twins, Arya and Rhaella, and fled further, first to Lannisport, then across the sea to Fair Isle, where the new lord, Mark Farman, whose father and elder brother had both perished in the battle, fighting for Aegon, gave her sanctuary and swore no harm would come to her beneath his roof. For the better part of a year, the people of Fair Isle watched the east in dread, fearing the sight of Balerion's dark wings. But Maegor never came. Instead, the victorious king returned to the Red Keep, where he grimly set out on his new task, getting himself an heir.